Hey, what's up, guys? So, yeah, I want to talk about the character of Kylo Ren slash Ben Solo in this video. Just because, like, he is one of my favorite characters within Star Wars and even just in general. Um, and, yeah, I'm just going to share, like, what I've learned from this character and the things that have, like, stuck out to me from the story of this character. And maybe even something that you haven't even thought of in regards to this character that I've noticed. Um, so I mean, one of the main things with Kylo Ren slash Ben Solo is, you see you watch the sequel trilogy of Star Wars. I mean, love those movies or hate them. I mean, you can't deny the fact that, like, Kylo Ren, Adam Driver playing Kylo Ren slash Ben Solo, like, he's like the best part of the sequel trilogy, and it's like a fact. It's not even that, like, arguable. It's like the truth, you know. And you can just see how conflicted. You can just see how conflicted this character is. Like, he's so conflicted, like, all the time, and he's always, like, trying to suppress his true self. He's always trying to suppress his inner Ben Solo. Like, he's always just, like, haunted by his past. I noticed if you read the comics, he was manipulated and groomed, kind of similar to how his grandfather Anakin slash Vader was. He's manipulated by Snoke when he was younger, growing up, and then his parents Han and Leia shipped him off to Luke to train to become a Jedi, and it was just like a combination of those things, being manipulated by Snoke, and then him being sent to Luke, and then that whole incident at the Jedi Temple and everything, that whole controversial flashback scene in The Last Jedi. If you know what I'm talking about. I mean, if you know, you know. Yeah, just those things, all those things combined, just eventually, led him to the dark side, and you just see how conflicted this character is, and it's really interesting because it's like a reverse of the story of Anakin Skywalker, because in the prequel trilogy, the story of Anakin Skywalker, it's about his gradual descent to the dark. But with Ben Solo slash Kylo Ren, it shows his descent from being in the darkness to being redeemed to the light side. It's just an interesting, like, parallel that I noticed. But you see Han Solo reaching out to him in The Force Awakens, and you just see how conflicted he is in that scene. You can just see like how good of an actor Adam Driver is. You can just see, like, the pain, the emotional pain and conflict in Kylo Ren's face, when Han Solo was talking to him. And he just gets those reminders from these people, like his father Han Solo, and even like Rey and his mother Leia. He gets these reminders of his true self, Ben Solo, and it just caused him to be so conflicted, and that's what I admire about the character. He's so complex, and you can see, like, the light that's within him, the goodness that's within him, but he's just compelled to believe that he's just like a monster, and that's a lot of the reason, like, that's a lot of what led him to the dark side, and a lot of what stuck out to me the most with this character is the events in episode 9, Rise of Skywalker. Just because that's what shows showed his redemption of how he was brought to the light side, you know. And it all really started with the whole confrontation with Rey, you know. And she at the end of the lightsaber fight, she ended up stabbing him in a non-fatal area. And then, she uses the Force to heal him. She heals his wound. And then in that particular moment, that was when Leia reached out to Ben, when she reached out to Kylo Ren, her son, through the Force. And he felt that, like, the communication through the Force was successful, and he heard his mother, and it was really powerful. And then there was that scene where he had the memory of his father, and he kind of just went through that whole moment again. So it was all like, it was all family. It all stemmed from the love of his parents, and Rey reminding him of his true self. And and then he ended up contributing in the final battle against Palpatine, against the Sith, against the First Order, and if it weren't for him coming to Rey's aid in the fight against Palpatine, like, she would have been screwed. Like, I realized that. Like, if it weren't for Ben Solo, if it weren't for him being redeemed and then going to the planet of Exegol to help in the fight, to help Rey, like, I realized that, like, she would have been screwed. Like, she would have been taken over by Palpatine, and then he falls off that cliff, and then you think that, like, Palpatine, like, killed him, because he clearly falls down this hole, and then you see him climbing back up, and then Rey ends up dying from defeating the Emperor, essentially, and then Ben Solo, when he climbs back up, miraculously, he climbs back up, from the fall. He sees Rey, and he restores her life through his own life force, through using the Force to heal her and restore her back to life. And something I noticed really profound about that is it goes full circle with that whole scene. He was able to save the one he cared about from dying. He was able to save the one he loved and he cared about from dying, which is exactly what his grandfather, Anakin Skywalker, sought to do but failed to do. So it just kind of all went full circle. He was redeemed to the light side. He saved the one that he cared about from dying. The one that was a huge catalyst. I'm talking about Rey. She was a huge catalyst in his redemption. And she, he had that whole Force dyad connection with her, And yeah, it was just like a really cool, like, full circle moment that I noticed, as he, restored her life. He did exactly what Anakin sought to do with Padme but couldn't do, and he was the one that ended up doing that. So it was like a really cool, like, what's the word? It's cool, like, it's a good, like, closure type of thing for the Skywalker saga, the Skywalker legacy, So I thought that was really neat, and that was just like a cool little finishing touch that kind of made me feel a little bit better about the sequel trilogy. But yeah, very, Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, very complex character, like, and it's just those parallels. It's those parallels. That's a lot of what stuck out to me. And another thing that I noticed is the place where Kylo Ren fought Rey. It's like the opposite of where Anakin and Obi-Wan fought. On that volcano planet Mustafar. Like they were fighting on a planet where there was water around, like the sea, waters, waves splashing over them. So it was like a parallel between the waves of the water and the sea and lava, volcano planet, and the water represented, in the Rise of Skywalker with Kylo Ren being redeemed, that represented the redemption being brought to the light side, and then the lava, the volcano planet in Revenge of the Sith and the prequels, that represented, apparently I can't talk. That represented, that's what I meant to say, falling to the dark side. So it's just like some cool parallels that I noticed. That's a lot of like what stuck out to me with Kylo Ren's character, and just like how complex he was and just how conflicted he was. There's so much more to say about this character, but I can only go on for so long. But yeah, that's all I want to say, all I want to share in this video. Just some things that that stuck out to me that I noticed about Kylo Ren / Ben Solo. And yeah, that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in my video.